Big drive energy. Sunday afternoon, maybe our last Sunday evening happy hour show of 2024. Kind of sad. We're going to recap the whole President's Cup for you. It was a fun 4 days of golf, and I really think they're building something here. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about the United States winning again in pretty deciding fashion. And then we'll also talk about our trip to Whistling Straits, a couple days of golf for us, how much fun we had just partying around Milwaukee/Sheboygan, Wisconsin. And we've got a mulligan of the week as well. All right, let's tee it up. Big drive energy Sunday evening happy hour edition. Mitch, you just made it home from MetLife Stadium. How are the vibes? It seems like it was had been even though it was, I thought we were cooked, a good time overall sitting in a box. You weren't out in the rain with all the tough people.
Oh yeah. No, I made a joke that I was like, it's too warm in the box. You know me, I get a little hot. I prefer to be a little chillier. I almost asked for the AC. But no, I had a blast. As you could tell, I've already had happy hour. So I might fire off some takes like I usually do, but they may be a little bit more fragrant. They may stink a little bit more. Uh, but yeah, I mean the Broncos winning was just like the cherry on top. I am just so tired though. Like I against my own volition, I went to this game and I agreed to this. We planned this like 3-4 months ago. Um I mean, I couldn't bail out and I wanted to go, but this morning that alarm went off at about 5 a.m. and or no, was it earlier than that? Yours went off at 3 a.m. or was it
Yeah, mine
4?
about 3:50 is when I set mine for.
Okay, 3:50. Yeah, and I was like worried you weren't going to wake up, and then I tried to go back to sleep, and then I woke up at like 5:15, just dead tired, just couldn't. I was just immediately regretting everything, but then made it to the airport. Almost, I wouldn't say I missed the flight, almost missed the flight, but there was one baggage attendant, and there was about 20 people in line,
Oh,
and I
really?
literally just had to drop my bag, but everybody was waiting to even just drop their bag, and I was like, holy shit. Luckily I kind of pushed through it and made it in time, but there was definitely a little bit of concern there in the middle. So uh I feel like I should have more energy. The US just rolled the international team. We're not going to make that mistake again. It's not the European team, it's the international team.
Dude,
uh
the faxon on the broadcast today called them the Canadians.
that is
And then
awesome.
he like corrected himself and was like, the international team. I know what I'm talking about.
I mean, there could have been a lot of things you could have called them. You know, depending
Loser.
on who was playing at the time, not in a bad way, but like there was only 3 Canadians on the team out of 12, 14 players. So, um, yeah, it was a fun week. I mean, you can kind of give me your thoughts on it, but ultimately it was just another kind of head up, like dead ahead, roll them type of week. I mean, after day 2, it was a little sketchy. I called that shit. I knew at one point I was gonna want to say that I called something. I did say that the Europeans, there we go, already did it. The Europeans, the international team. I said that the international team was going to keep it competitive, maybe win. They didn't, but hey, there's always a couple years from now. You never know.
Yeah, well, here's my biggest takeaway from the President's Cup is you sent me that tweet from No Laying Up, um, you know, competitor of the program, if you will. But so their tweet was, "It's been more than a quarter century since the internationals won this event. Half of the singles matches have teed off in the US is minus 2,500 to win. Something just has to be done at this point." And while I don't disagree, I really think after watching this President's Cup that the international team, oh, point for me, that they really created a rivalry and made it feel like a Ryder Cup. It didn't, it's always going to be the redheaded stepchild of the Ryder Cup and the little stepbrother that nobody likes. But to those players, it meant everything because that's what they can play in terms of international match play competition. And the United States, I feel like after they rolled the first day, we're up 5-0. We all thought this was going to be a laugher. And then they turn around and on Friday take all 5 points back in a complete sweep. So I think that nonetheless, yes, the international team did not win or even keep it really close. Like there was a few chances today where I felt like they had a shot to make it intense down the finish. Like a Max Homa making the winning putt for the United States is the last singles match, but towards the middle of the rounds, it was just all red the first 4 or 5 matches through Patrick Cantlay's match. And at that point, it was like you're counting the points up and you're like, okay, they're getting to 15 and a half before this even gets close. And I'm happy, obviously, that the United States won. It's kind of like, all right, we're still dominant in this field and on these Presidents Cups. But I feel like the combination of Tom Kim, Siwoo Kim, Sanjay, like all those guys just getting fired up emotionally and the crowd kind of helping them into it because we did talk about it before, but just in general it's a weird dynamic because you have so many different nationalities rooting for one team and then Americans rooting for the American team. So I do think the crowd did a decent job of like if let's say somebody was Canadian because most of the crowd there was probably Canadians, they were rooting for like a Sanjay or Hideki or Siwoo, whatever it ends up being. And I felt like there was a pretty good collective booing of the American team, which you got to have that. Like it's an away game, you get booed. Were you there when the Broncos came out of the tunnel today? They probably booed. That's just how it goes on an away game.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be good enough to get booed because if the international team wasn't good enough to even be competitive, then there'd be no use in booing. So, I mean, there's definitely, like you said, more of a competitive edge this year. There was actually some life in it. So the fact that they were booing the U.S. maybe propelled them even further, but at the same time, that had to make the international team feel good that, and I'm not trying to give any participation trophies here, but they definitely made it more competitive and it made it feel more like the kind of event that it is. You know what I mean? Not just some exhibition non-thought for the American team. I was about to say the Broncos. The Broncos really didn't get booed much. Honestly, there's a lot of Broncos fans there. So credit to the Broncos. There's a few times where a few people looked at me and they're like, why is it so loud right now? I'm like, we travel well. It's just the Broncos. But I will say with the Canadians rooting for, Sun J.M., Tom Kim, blah, 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 they may not love them all the time, but the enemy of your enemy is always going to be your friend. So obviously it was the U.S. against the world this week, and the Canadians didn't care who it was. They were going to pull for them hard as long as they weren't an American. So I would say the fans did their job. Once again, I think the venue kind of struck out. They could have hosted it at a better spot, but that's who knows how deep that decision goes. And it was probably selected when I was like 21 years old. So it was made a long time ago, but it's just unfortunate that the course was so bland for, having an international event. This is supposed to be the entire world. And the best thing you could come up with was a Parkland style straightforward golf course in Montreal, Canada, when you could choose a course in Japan, which I know they just played over there a few years ago, but you could go literally anywhere besides like continental Europe, and you decide in Montreal, Canada, that you're going to do it, when even Eastern Canada, like Nova Scotia or Western Canada, could have gotten it done. But um, yeah, I mean, overall, big takeaway was Tom Kim he likes playing the villain, which I respect. He definitely was enjoying, and Siwoo Kim, Tom Him and Siwoo Him, a couple of hymns out there
There was a
for,
lot
you
of
know,
hymns in the international squad. But yeah, Tom Kim becoming the villain was not something I would have had in my, what's the term for
bingo
that?
card.
On my bingo card for this week, in terms of he seems like the nicest, most lovable guy on the PGA Tour, and became friends with Scotty Scheffler and plays golf with him all the time. Scotty Scheffler takes Tom Kim out to dinner for his birthday. A lot of things like that. But I just got a congratulations, your bet returned money. So one of our bets must have hit this week.
Okay.
The Bet 365 app. Let me get logged in here and figure out
Yeah,
what that
pull that
was.
up.
Because honestly, it's
Um,
a cluster trying to like keep track of, Siwoo Kim only played, or no, Minwoo Lee only played like two of the possible matches, and then they were also saying guys like Adam Scott, he just played his 54th President's Cup match for the international team, and he's basically one match away. So if he plays in the 2 years from now, probably kind of highly unlikely. But if he plays 2 years from now, he will. Oh my God, I got them both right. Xander Schauffele plus 600, top U.S. point scorer. He split that with somebody because it didn't pay out fully, but it paid out. And then
okay.
Adam Scott, the top international scorer, with a boost which also got paid out partially. So I was double right on both Xander Schauffele and Adam Scott being the top point scorers, because there's some other people that mentioned it. While he's the best player in the world, Scotty Scheffler wasn't the dominant Scotty Scheffler that he has been all throughout the PGA Tour this year and really the last 2 years in the President's Cup. And I think he took the L today. I want to say it's so kind of, it's not like fun to talk about, like, oh, Scotty Scheffler lost, because the team won. So it's really it's kind of a waste of time to talk
It's a
about
mute point. Yeah.
all the winners and losers. But the tweet that I sent you today, I think, is worth talking about, because fucking Ben On put Wyndham Clark in a body bag. And so if you guys didn't see this tweet, let's see. So it started with,
Did you see Wyndham's response?
no, I did not.
Wyndham commented on it and said, there's the guy who didn't even have a tee time. So Wyndham had a pretty good clap back. I
Oh,
mean,
that's incredible.
there was definitely some jawing going on social media.
Well, and that's what I really appreciate about this President's Cup is, I think going forward, it's going to have a lot more juice. Like, this is a cliche thing to say. I'm already excited for 2026 when this comes back around, just due to the fact of how much juice was built up after that Friday, after the international team swept the US. They weren't just going to walk in there and dominate. The international team got punched in the mouth. They punched back with all they had, tied it. Unfortunately, couldn't keep that train rolling, couldn't keep the momentum going through Saturday. It was close-ish today until the first four matches were all in the United States' favor. Xander Schauffele came out today and just boat raced Jason Day. Like, Jason Day made birdies on the first two holes, and you're thinking, okay, in these match play style single events when there's 12 groups, you're like, hey, get that first guy. Like, whether or not it's real, it just feels there's some momentum when that first guy comes out and is dominant. And it swung in the U.S.'s favor today when they sent out Xander Schauffele, arguably the second best player on the entire planet right now, and he dominates Jason Day. Now, the other thing I'd be curious to see is how they got matched up. Is does like do Furyk and Weir just put their teams out and not know who's going where against who, or do they get to like pick matchups back to back against who's playing? Not saying that Jason Day's not a good player, probably not the guy you send out there first against a guy like Xander Schauffele, but once again, they may have not known who they were sending out or when. It's just like, okay, you're the first group, you're going out against whoever's the U.S. picks.
Yeah, I do want to say they both just pick their order blindly. I don't think they like sit down and hash out, it's not a snake style draft of who gets to go who here and there. I think they just put their rosters out. Um, Honestly, I wish I knew. And that's kind of something that isn't really talked about, unfortunately. But like you said, I think going forward, if the international team in 2026 actually, keeps building momentum and eventually, who knows, in 2028 back internationals on an international site, they may win it. And I said they were going to win it this week. I know I was wrong. Obviously, I mean, they haven't won it since Adam Scott has been on tour. So almost as long as I've been alive. But I really do, like you said, feel like they're building something where Tom Kim, I mean, he feels like an NFL player because it feels like he's a veteran and he's what, 21, maybe 22 years old now. So he's very young. He's going to be peaking. He's going to get better and better. He's still not even at his best right now. And then we'll see if the live players are added back in. And then you have Joaquin Neiman and a few other guys on the international team that can really make a splash as well. So
Cameron
we could
Smith.
look back. Huh?
Cameron Smith as well.
Well, yes, Cam Smith for sure. Who knows
Like
if he's going to even be playing golf by then? He just feels like he's made all the money in the world and wants to just fish. So,
Yeah, like adding in those guys just brings a little bit more of a. It doesn't necessarily make the competition more close, but it just brings a little bit more of the rising, or what is it?
rising
uh,
tide lifts all ships.
lift all ships. Yeah, and I just think there's definitely a few players at the bottom of the international roster where you're like, oh, I don't know how they're going to compete. It's not like the U.S. was 12 deep either when you had guys like not playing that good at golf. And of course, I'm saying this from sitting in a chair in my living room. But like the teams could have been better on both sides, but I do think that'll help the international team. And do you know? So I was looking this up right now. Do you know where the 2026 President's Cup is?
I do not.
It's at Medina in Chicago.
Oh, let's
So
go. I love Medina. That's a great site.
yeah, and then the 2028 President's Cup is at Kingston Heath Golf Club in Melbourne, Australia. So
Melbourne.
Melbourne,
That is,
Melbourne.
I honestly,
And
I know it's
2030 at
it.
Bellerive in St.
Okay,
Louis.
in St. Louis. Got you. Uh, I'll say it right now. It's very early. I think the international team wins the 2028 President's Cup
In
at
Australia.
Kingston Heath in Australia. I feel like it's going to be all the way back at that point. Like I said earlier this week, I think if the international team wins, it's going to be in Australia because I think that gives them a distinct advantage in the course style because it's so much more firm than anything you see over here in America. The desert terrain, the dry fairways, the really tight lies. I think if the international team is going to do it, it's going to be in Australia. So I like their chances in 2028, and we'll see what each team looks like by then. There could be some up and comers on the PGA Tour and on the American side, and also on the international side. The game of golf is just getting better and better. The talent is just getting deeper and deeper. So no matter where you're from, and Australia pumps talent out like relatively speaking, population wise, they pump just as much talent out as America does for how few people live there. I mean, they've got some gamers. So I already cannot wait for 2028. I mean, I don't want to wish my whole life away here, but I'll be 33 at that point. I'll just be a young man,
Just a
just
young 33-year-old.
a little bit
Watch.
more experienced. But Medina will be a lot of fun. I mean, that's a great host. I know they've pretty much renovated the entire thing since the Ryder Cup in the 2010s. So, but that Ryder Cup still sticks in my mind as one of my all-time favorite Ryder Cups. So, that is going to be a very good host site. But yeah, credit to the international team. I don't want to give out any participation trophies, like I said, but they made it competitive. It was worth watching on Sunday. So that's really all that you can ask for. Uh, I was wrong. The international team did not win. But I guess, like, what do you think? Tell me your opinion, because a lot of people were saying on social media that this event just needs to be changed because the US just dominates it. But then I saw a tweet that 25% of the total betting handle was on the international team to win the event. So, what, there's still people that believe that the internationals can get it done, whether it's right or it's wrong. But do you really think it needs a change? I do think that making it a mixed event would really elevate it. But then does that almost shrivel the international team? Like, oh, you guys are just it's such a non-competitive event that we need to change it. You know what I mean? Do you keep giving them shots at this, or do you change it?
Yeah, I see. I personally, with professional athletes, it's like just like they say if you're in a football game and you're up by 40 and you're professional athletes, like keep burying them. If they can't stop you, keep going. And that's how I think it should be for the President's Cup, because it makes for the international team. These are things that these guys can build up to and get excited for, just like all the, guys do for the Ryder Cup on that European team. And now it was a bunch of younger guys, save for like Adam Scott and guys that have played in just a few of these, getting their feet wet. Like, I don't think you should just like stop the count on this. I think they can add another event, like a President's Cup with females, where it's a mixed event, and I think that'd be fun. But I do think, since they're professional athletes, like there's no reason to feel sorry for those guys out there. They got their ass kicked, and they have been getting their ass kicked, but one day they'll get up off the mat and they'll surprise the United States team, and they kind of did on Friday. And that's what made this one fun, along with all the trash talk from both sides, made it a lot of fun and made it worth watching. And that's, I think, the biggest goal of this in general. You never know who's going to win a team sport, especially in golf, because it's normally so individualized. And golf in match play is just a different style of golf. Like, the best player in the world is not necessarily the best at playing match play. But overall, it was worth watching, and it was a great 4 days of golf, and kind of just a good way to finish this 2024 golf season. Speaking of former Ryder Cup hosts, like we talked about, we played up at Whistling Straits and the Black Wolf Run River course yesterday, which it feels like that was a month ago. Like, I got up at 3:30, I got home before my family was awake. That's how early I got home. It was nuts. But what did you think of the two golf courses? I know we both I hit it so bad yesterday that I really can't. I'm not like I'm not any good like meter on that. But like, I know you didn't hit it as well yesterday for sure, and we had more wind and the course was a little bit tougher in my opinion. But what did you think of Black Wolf Run River course and then the Whistling Straits Irish course? Because I had a clear favorite, but I also think that just goes back to the old golfing days of when you play well somewhere, you enjoy the golf course type of scenario.
Yeah, I definitely would say I enjoyed Whistling Straits, the Irish course, more than Black Wolf Run. Not that Black Wolf wasn't a great track, it was. It was just, I wouldn't call it too hard, and like you said, I didn't hit it great, but the the green speeds were tough to get down. There's a lot of elevation change, which you didn't think that you would get in Wisconsin. But the Irish course is just a really good in your face link style golf course. There's maybe one or two blind shots, but for the most part, it was pretty in your face. You kind of know what you get, uh, and you just got to go out and execute and hit golf shots. But yeah, the river course was brutal, man. Like I felt like I went 10 rounds with Mike Tyson and just got the shit beat out of me. I felt like half my ear was hanging on for dear life after that that 16th hole, man. And I, like you said, and here's another hypothetical, like when the course is that tough, it's kind of one of those where if you build momentum and you hit a few good shots, your game definitely goes in that direction. But when the course is that tough, if you hit a few wonky ones, it just feels like you have no shot. It just, and I mean,
Yeah,
I
you
felt that way.
and you everything shrinks. You feel like
Yes.
your margin of error is 5 yards in the center of the fairway, or else you're just boned and you're not getting up and down,
Yeah.
and you're not
You
having
start
shots to hit the
seeing
green.
you start seeing a pinhole through your eye instead of seeing the entire fairway. You're just so locked in, and the fairway narrows up, like you said. The greens get tiny. It's equivalent to when you're pitching and you can't throw a strike. The strike zone feels like it's the size of a thimble, and then when you're pitching well, it just feels like you can't miss. So I definitely neither of the days felt like I couldn't miss. It was not that kind of like effortless type of golf by any means. So that was not really helpful. But ultimately speaking, I did have a lot of fun. I think we got to talk about how much it costs just for the people that are curious, because for the everyday person, it is quite a bit of money. Like in realistically, so your PGA, full disclosure, your PGA, so you paid significantly less than I did being non PGA. But being in my shoes, I paid $450 to play the Irish course and $520 to pay to play the Black Wolf Run River course. Would you say that that was worth it? Like, if you knew that you were going and paying that and had to do it again, would you do it?
It's so hard to ask me this question. I think I'd be curious to like somebody that just likes to play golf for fun. Not that we don't, but we've played so much free golf over the years that it's hard for me. Like $100 feels overpriced at a golf course to me. But then spin zone, like me paying way less than you were paying, I felt like I was getting a deal. And I felt like I was like, oh my God, this is a steal. Whereas if I would have paid that same price at a course like out here, I've been like, this is a highway robbery for golf. I can't
Yeah.
believe I actually pay this much. And it's an experience out there. I mean, they give you a complimentary hot dog or brat at the turn. So it's clearly worth, all that you're paying for playing that golf course, and a free bag tag at the beginning. Don't get me fucked up with that, along with tees and a ball marker.
The
But
accommodations are top notch. At least $15 worth of free shit for your $500 round.
yeah, and I think it's it's just got to be a place where it's like I not that I never want to play there again, but at this point it's like I'd rather, if I'm going to pay that much again, I'd rather go somewhere else, somewhere new. It's like one of those destination type of places where I had a great time playing it, and it was definitely worth like saying you played it, getting some merch, being there, being on. It is cool. Like one of the things I really like about playing a course like that is you just walk out there, and we've played Colorado Golf Club where it's not like PGA Tour event level, but like you're just walking somewhere where you're like, oh shit, like the United States Ryder Cup team walked right here. They walked right in the same spot. They were putting on the same putting green. They were, walking right through this same clubhouse. So that feeling is really cool. Just like the aura of the golf course. I know I like to use that word now, but they are really top notch, and you're paying a lot of money. But I also feel like, depending upon how much you value golf, but the amenities and the rest of the just the professionalism and the way the places are run and what they have and how good the golf courses were, I think it's as worth it as it could be, essentially.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I would say they make the experience as enjoyable. Like, you don't walk into an asshole in the pro shop, that's for sure. Because if that was the case, they would either get shit canned or the place would not be charging near as much. Like, I think everybody kind of gets the program out there when you're working behind a desk, where like when I went and charged my car to Air at I'm sorry, I was gonna say Aaron Hills. We had that fucked up all week. I thought we were playing Aaron Hills, we were playing Black Wolf. Uh but when the guy went to charge me, they won't even say the amount out loud. They're like, put your card, you can tap your card. And I look down, it's $520. And the guy goes, I saw the smirk on your face when you charged the card. I'm like, yeah, man, I mean, I guess. And that's the craziest thing, is like people are lining up to do this shit. These tee times are booked 3 months in advance. So there's definitely not a shortage. They're not pushing people out. And we kind of talked about, like, where do you draw the line? Like, eventually it's going to be $750, $800 for a round of golf. And is the tee sheet going to be full at that point? You know, is it going to be $1,000 in 10 years? And inflation, you know, we've talked about inflation in the golf industry. But I would say the most frustrating thing with these golf trips in general is, like you said, I don't know if I would go pay the money to play that course again, like $500 at Black Wolf Run, really not the value. But when you get done, you're like, I feel like I could do so much better on this course now that I know it. You know what I mean? You almost want to go play it again now that you've played it once, because it's somewhat of a double edged sword. It's your first time playing this golf course and it's hard as fuck. And you're trying to play your best golf without knowing anything, and you're paying this exorbitant amount, so you want to make sure you enjoy yourself. But at some point, you know, and I mean, maybe it comes down to the tees you're playing or whatever, but you just want to make sure you have fun. And a lot of times, I guess people are just gluttons for punishment if they, you know, willingly pay $500 to go shoot 120 and lose a whole box of balls. But it just becomes not fun. You kind of look yourself in the mirror and you're like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, I could go pay $70, play a muni with my buddies, and get the same enjoyment out of this as I would, you know. And these places too, it's unfortunate, but it's somewhat of a status thing. Like, oh, I played Black Wolf Run, I played Whistling Straits, I played here, I played there, and that doesn't necessarily equate to truly enjoying yourself. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, and it's all in the person's mindset too. Like, if I would have much rather like played you in match play, I still would have gotten my dick kicked in most likely. But it feels like for our level of golfer, where we generally, when we go out to a golf course that is not as decently hard and we're playing, you know, the tips or even one ups, like I feel like I have a good chance at shooting even par there. You know, I'm not gonna burn it up and shoot 65 at a even at a place I know, but I feel
Me
like even
neither.
par is a reasonable goal, even par to a couple over par. And like I started out with just a great tee shot on one at the Irish, then make bogey from 73 yards out in the fairway, then make triple on the second hole. And at that point, I'm like mentally in my head, like, well, I can't score well today unless I start making a shitload of birdies coming in and a bunch of pars. So I think if I change my mindset that way, then it would have been a little more fun. And not that I didn't have fun, but I think a lot of people would really just have the mindset of like, they're not trying to shoot a score, especially at a tough golf course like that. If they're like 15, 20 handicap, so they're like, oh, they have one bad hole, they can completely erase it, write down an X, and then if somebody asks them what they shot, they could just say, oh, I shot, you know, 85 with two X's or whatever, if that's what they want to say. And that's what they want. Like they want to say their score. But I think it's more about just the general experience of the golf course and getting to play it with your buddies and being out. Like I'm sure there's a lot of areas around there where the lodging is incredible, and just like being up in an area that's, it's because what we talked about driving out there. Sheboygan as a town, very small, very cool town, very Midwest, and then one of the world's greatest golf resorts is just 15 miles up the road, and you're just driving on this 2-lane road out there that looks like it's just the side of nowhere. You can kind of see Lake Michigan, which looks like a fucking ocean to the right, and then all of a sudden you see this just massive golf course area that is like sacred land is what it feels like.
Yeah, it's definitely somewhat of like a paradise and dropped in the middle of rural Wisconsin, you know. I mean, what a piece of land that Kohler has up there. But I will also say too, not trying to be a cool guy here, but I've played a lot of I I haven't played a lot of links golf in Scotland, but I've played in Scotland, and a lot of people think that like you go to Whistling Straits and that's the equivalent of links golf here in America. You know, like they're like, oh, this is similar to St. Andrews or similar to one of those courses. These courses here in America, especially, at least I can speak for Whistling Straits, the Irish course, and then Erin Hills. If you play the old course versus these courses, these two courses in Wisconsin that we played are a million times harder than the old course at St. Andrews. Like, people have this idea in their head that they go over, and the link style is so much harder and it's so firm and fast. It is not fast at all. And I was telling you guys the last few days, I was like, I think these greens are honestly too fast for your average amateur, because the if the wind picks up, nobody has a real shot. Like, if I played my absolute ass off, I would shoot even par. And I guess that's kind of the point. But at the same time, for your average, 18 to 25 handicap, they're not even going to sniff breaking 100. And over in Scotland, that is very doable for these guys. Over in Scotland, the thing is the weather makes the golf courses hard. These golf courses we played in Wisconsin were hard before any wind whatsoever. So I would say that is the major difference. People picture links golf over in Ireland and Scotland, and maybe it's different in Ireland. I know the courses look a little bit more narrow and there's a little bit more fescue, but I'm not shitting you. When you go to the old course, you can literally hit it anywhere. You can, there's 3 or 4 fairways connected to one another with like no
Oh,
rough in between. Yeah, that is your kind of spot. So I would just say that it is its own kind of beast. It's not. I wouldn't even equate it to a link style course over in Scotland, because it's harder than that.
yeah. Well, in a lot of courses out there, like if you're, let's just say let's get very specific, you're 200 yards out in the middle of the fairway in Scotland. Somebody that doesn't hit the ball very consistently can hit a 150-yard lower, thin shot, and it rolls all the way up and rolls up onto the green. Now,
Yeah,
I'm not saying just like they can do that every time and it's easy. Like 20 handicap, still a 20 handicap, but there was none of that at Whistling Straits or at Black Wolf Run. You got to hit, like we hit a lot of good golf shots that didn't end up good. That like a
yeah,
20 handicap maybe hits 5 or 6 of those around ish. Maybe that's even too much. 1 or 2 of those around. That's how good the ball was struck, and you're just 5 feet off in the wrong spot. You're not finding it. So it was very tough, and I definitely got broken and beaten down a few times. But I ended up making birdie on the 16th hole yesterday of the last round, so I felt like I could go out on a there.
I mean, you had like 8 feet for eagle, so you could have made eagle, but the putter was not.
Like no, it was like 15 feet, but that was the classic Spencer Eagle, like or Spencer birdie, hit a par 5 and 2 and 2 putt it. That's how we do it.
And you also hit a 5 wood from 255 on 18 to like 10 feet, and unfortunately just missed it on the high side. But that golf shot was incredible. I mean, the 18th hole, even from the blue tees, was a 470-yard par, or no, was it 480 or 490? It
I don't
was
remember. I just
it
remember
was a
hitting my drive right into the wind that blew it right, and it just went nowhere.
it was very long. Like, I hit one of my better drivers all day, and it was kind of that knuckly little draw, and I had 200 yards in, and then I fucking blew it 30 yards left into the fairway bunker, or greenside, whatever waste area you want to call it. But you had 255 in, which the wind just owned your tee shot, but then you stepped up and just hit a piss missile to like 10 feet. And that was super cool. I was rooting for you to make that putt on 18, just to, kind of cap off the trip. But that's kind of how it goes at those courses. You got to earn every single shot. Nothing. We were talking with Will, the guy we were playing with. Shout out Will Young. Uh, Absolute blast playing with the dude. But we were just saying, you can't take a single hole off, especially at Black Wolf. Like, there was a few easier holes at Whistling, but Black Wolf Run was a battle every single hole. There was not an easy golf hole on that course.
No, yeah, you can't breathe there. You're dialed in every single hole. So,
Yeah,
but it was, I thought
it was.
overall it was a solid time. Do you
I
got have
I would
anything else? President's Cup or our trip?
um no, I mean, I've got my mulligan of the week, which you just want to roll into that, because
Yeah, let's hit it.
it was just the schedule. These last My life these last 3 days has put me in a blender. Like, I didn't know. I got in the car this morning. my girlfriend picked me up at the airport and we went straight to MetLife. And I was like, how am I going to do this? I was considering taking a nap. I just fucking pushed my way right through there, but it was just a weekend. I need to sleep for like about 10 to 12 hours.
Yeah, yeah, I'm feeling you on that. Like little early to bed Sunday night, watch Sunday night football in bed and sleep for 10 to 12 hours sounds
Yes.
absolutely choice. My mulligan of the week is just the fact that so we went to this great bar yesterday called the Mecca, and it's an insane sports bar, really awesome spot. But we sat down at the lower bar, and my neck is still in pain because we were sitting like this for so long and just staring at screens, trying to watch college football that I no joke like have been trying to keep my neck stretched out, and then you go like sit on a plane. Um, it's just like a neck pain slash upper back pain. It just doesn't disappear ever, once you have it. So now I'm going to be like ultra careful these next couple of days. But yeah, I can even like thinking about looking up and tilting my head back kind of like gives me the willies right now. I'm like, oh, no, let's keep it down. Keep the chin down. Tuck the chin.
Yeah, I don't think I slept right in that Airbnb either. So like I woke up yesterday morning and my neck was I felt like Quasimodo, like my neck was just stuck to the side. Um I will say a non-mulligan of the week, something I will absolutely do again. I always hate on people that lean their seat back. I cannot stand people that lay back their seat in an airplane because for the most part it doesn't do you a whole lot of good. But I found this spot today. I finally gave in and I was like, I'm just going to see how far back this chair goes. Like, I don't give a shit. It's 7 in the morning. Everybody's trying to sleep. So I'm going to lean this chair back. I leaned it back and I found this sweet spot and I like passed out like a baby. And I was in economy plus, so I had all the leg room. And I legit like lay, when you like sit on a chair without a footrest, but you can stretch your legs out and kind of cross your legs and you put your hands like on your waist or your stomach and I passed out like grandpa style. I was just fucking like this and I was like, holy shit, this is the best thing ever. Like I don't know why I've never leaned my seat back before. So I will do that again. I apologize in advance to everyone that sits behind me on the airplane, because I am now going to be that guy that leans my seat back. Sorry, I don't give a shit what you think of it behind me. If it helps me sleep, because I generally am not a good sleeper on an airplane, but I just passed right out. And obviously I was very tired today, but it definitely helped me find a little sweet spot.
Yeah, I had a whole aisle to myself flying home. There's only 50 people on the entire plane. I guess that's what you get at a 5:30 a.m. flight on a Sunday out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which was great. But I was like, okay, I was caught between a Sophie's choice of putting my feet up and like laying across the seats, but leaving my shoes on and just like putting my shoes on the seat. Now I know they're pretty clean. It's not like I was like walking through the mud, but also I was like, well, that kind of looks bad if somebody looks over and just sees my feet on these seats, like they have to clean them, etc. And then I was also like, well, I definitely can't take my shoes off and just sock it and put my feet in the aisle like 4 feet from this lady reading her book. Like that's also disrespectful. So I just didn't put my feet on the seat at all. I just laid down and kind of moved my legs into the middle seat and just stretched out that way. But
Do you know what you could have done is just hit the like sit in the middle seat and then put your feet up on the wall, like above the window. And, like you're at home putting your feet up against the wall. That shit
that,
feels so good.
yeah, but that shit would have been so bad because of how I jolt and like wake up on the planes. Like I would have definitely something bad would have happened there.
No, I felt the exact same way. I did not catch generally, I catch myself I wake myself up because I'm snoring and I don't wanna make myself look like an asshole in public. So I didn't do that today. I just kinda, like, calmly woke up, so that was nice, but, yeah, I guess you just gotta be really, really tired, and then you'll sleep anywhere.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we're going to go get some sleep here shortly. We appreciate you all tuning in to this edition, Sunday evening happy hour edition of Big Drive Energy. Make sure you're following us on all the socials at Big Drive Energy Pod on Instagram, at Big Drive Energy on TikTok and Twitter, also known as the X. We'll have a lot of content coming out, a ton of videos. We were recording most of the both rounds of golf this past weekend, so we're gonna have a ton of content coming out. We think it's funny. Hopefully you do too. Give us a like on there. If you're watching this on the YouTube, give us a thumbs up on your way out. If you're listening to this audio version, give our show a rating. We'd always appreciate that. That helps us a ton. For Big Drive Spence, he is at Big Drive Mitch. We are going to enjoy this week. We'll be back not this coming Monday, but next Monday for another edition of Big Drive Energy. We'll talk to you then. Peace.